According to an article published on Education and Workplace Democrats, it is estimated that the value of minimum wage has actually decreased by 24% since 1968. So what that means is that the value of the dollar value has actually not decreased, it's increased, but because of inflation, the value has not increased fast enough to keep up with inflation. And because of inflation, the value of minimum wage is actually less today than what it was in 1968, even though the dollar amount was actually less. And then according to an article published by FamilyUSA.org, the poverty line in America for a single parent with 2 kids is about $20,780. And for an individual with 2 kids working a minimum wage job, which is considered to be $7.25 federally, it is estimated that they would be about $6,000 short of the poverty line. So what that means is that the United States has set a standard for poverty, and the minimum wage that they set is actually well below poverty. So $15,000 or $6,000 short of what the poverty line is for an individual with 2 kids. And that to me is just unacceptable. So there needs to be change. And what we can do is we can increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. So according to the Economic Policy Institute, this can be done incrementally until 2024. So we increase the value each year by about $2 or so, and by 2024 that value will increase to that $15 mark that we're looking for. So this fight is called the Fight for 15, and it was launched in 2015, and it was a fight for the federal minimum wage to actually increase to $15 an hour. And since that fight in 2015 began, 21% of American workers have actually seen an increase to that $15 an hour statewide. So that those people are represented by California, New York, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. So as you can tell, 4 states, so we have a lot of work to do. So we're still hitting a lot of people, but we have still a lot more work to do. And so in order for us to get to everybody, which would include 40 million United States workers, we have to make the federal change. So that would be 40 million people that would have their rates boosted to $15 an hour. So that would boost if an individual with 2 kids were to be working $40 for 40 hours a week for those 52 weeks, they would actually increase to a $30,000 per year salary instead of the $15,000, and that would be more money for them, and they would go above that poverty threshold, and this is good for everybody. So what that would do is it would have more money in the hands of lower class Americans, which means that they're going to be able to spend more money on things that they want, things that they need, and have more money to go around. And so right now we're dealing with a large pay gap in the United States. So the top 1%, a really small percentage of people up at the very top, are making an absolutely extraordinary amount of money, and then the bottom percentage of people that are considered to be in the lower class or even in the middle class are making not quite enough money to actually survive. And that means, and so not enough money is actually circulating in the economy, and people are hurting. So you have a lot of people holding on to a lot of money, and a lot of people who just don't have enough money to survive. And so that's why we need to have this $15 minimum wage increase. We have to get to that $15 mark in order for people to be able to survive. More money is going to be in the circulation, and that's going to be good for the United States economy, according to the Committee on Education and Workplace Democrats. Now, the other good thing that ends up occurring when this happens, this $15 minimum wage occurs, is that the people that are considered to be middle class or even lower middle class, they're actually going to get a pay increase too, to try to match the $15 minimum wage that people see. And so that's going to be good for the middle class too. That means more money for them, and that means even more money that's going to be circulating, more money that's going to be spent, more money that's going to be driven into business, and everybody is truly going to benefit. And so some people say if you increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, that it's actually going to cause layoffs. But what people don't realize is that there's people that are making the minimum wage or making below that $15 an hour rate who are working 2 jobs because of that. And so if you are a person who needs to work 2 jobs, but you get boosted up to that $15 an hour, it'll actually allow you to work less jobs. You have people working 2, 3, 4 jobs, and now they're only going to have to work 1, maybe even 2 if they have to. But again, that gives them a little bit more breathing room, and that means that less people are going to be working too many jobs. And so those layoffs won't actually occur because people will be able to leave those extra jobs. And that's, again, good for everybody because that means that they get to stay home. So what I did here is actually I printed out a federal minimum wage sheet here. And what this does, it's just a little graph, but it actually does a really good job of showing kind of where the issues are. So this red line, so this starts in 1940. And this red line here that slowly increases is the minimum wage that is unadjusted. So it's not adjusted for inflation. And then this blue line here is a line that is adjusted for inflation. So back in 1940, the minimum wage was $3.50. And today in 2020, so 80 years later, the minimum wage is still $7.25. So we've only had a $4 increase over an 80-year span. And again, up here at this peak in the 1960s, federal minimum wage was nearly $9 an hour. And again, now the rate has actually gone down, adjusting for inflation. So now we're down to $7.25. And so you might be sitting here wondering, like, what can I do? So there's a lot you can do. The biggest and best thing you can do is call your representatives. So if there's people that that are struggling, if you have friends, family, we all know people that are struggling to make ends meet, have them call the representatives. They rely on your vote in order to be reelected. And if you call them and tell them your stripes, your issues with the federal minimum wage being so low, and tell them that you want an increase, tell them you want that $15. And when the votes come around, if enough people call and enough people tell them that they need this, change is going to happen. And the great thing is that when this change happens, it's going to be great for everybody. So 75% of people are in support of a federal minimum wage increase to $12.50, and that's a great start. And so again, call your representatives. It's going to be great. The change will occur if you're the one that starts to make the change.